Just a reminder, when the Founding Fathers drafted the Second Amendment, they were confirming the right for the public to own, carry, and defend themselves and the most advanced weapon currently in existence. They would have loved the AR. That was a post from John Dillon on X. John Dillon specializes in California gun laws. So put his number on your phone right now, 760-642-7150. That's John Dillon, California Firearms Lawyer, 760-642-7150.
So we have really good news, and I wanted to go over it right off the top, right off the bat. We had a win, and it was the Nguyen-WIN. Our lawsuit with Michelle Nguyen, who's a member of San Diego County Gun Owners. And there are a couple other plaintiffs as well, North County Shooting Center and Poway Weapons and Gear, and, of course, Second Amendment Foundation and FPC. FPC did the lion's share of the work, and thank you guys so much. But San Diego County Gun Owners, also a big plaintiff, a big part of this win, and we're very, very happy. For those who don't know, the Nguyen case was the 1 in 30. So they passed a law a few years ago that you can only buy one gun every 30 days. And finally made its way. So we started this thing a while ago. Just, everybody asks me about, like, hey, what about a lawsuit? What about a lawsuit? And I always say it takes, 5 to 10 years and $500,000, And this was fairly quick, and it still took 4 years, basically. November 2020 was the original complaint. And again, Michelle, thank you so much for being one of the plaintiffs, and everybody in San Diego County Gun Owners, thank you for being a member, because you are also a plaintiff too. The first stop of this thing, so November 2020, we filed the complaint, and I wanted to read just the first sentence, just the introduction to the complaint, because it really perfectly encapsulates exactly what's going on. This is from the complaint. The Second Amendment protects, quote, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, quote, plural, which shall not be infringed. And they added that plural in there, which I thought was really, really great. A right delayed is a right denied, and the Second Amendment is not a second-class right. So we said, look, this 30-day thing, one gun every 30 days, doesn't make any sense at all. Doesn't make any sense at all. So first stop was district court, and we won. We won in district court, which is great. The second stop was actually an emergency appeal, and asked the three judges to stay the order, and the stay was placed. So we went to court. The judge agreed, okay, and said, "Hey, we're going to, they win. We're ruling in favor of the Second Amendment here." And then emergency went in front of three more judges, and they put a stay on the order. So we won, and they said, "Wait, not so fast. Before you guys are able to exercise your Second Amendment rights again, we're going to pause this whole thing." Well, the latest stop was a merits review. It wasn't an en banc. That still is possible. It was a merits review. One of the things that's really difficult about talking about lawsuits is understanding that there are so many avenues, and a few years ago, people didn't even know what an en banc was, and it's not necessarily the same route for every single case. So this one is something that maybe we're not used to seeing. It was a merits review, and it was in front of three judges. And the three judges were really rough on the state's attorney. And the state's attorney was really bad at trying to make his case. In fact, one of the big things they talked about was, why 30 days? Why not 60 days? Why not 10 days? Where did you guys come up with 30 days? And he danced around it and danced around it and danced around it and didn't answer it. And finally one of the judges said, well, what if it was 12 months? What if it was a year? And he said, yeah, you know what? That would get a lot closer to being unreasonable. I'm going, really? A year would get closer to being unreasonable? So they saw right through him. One of the judges said, okay, well, let's say, I own a shop, and some bad guy comes up and says, hey, I'm going to kill you and your everyone you love. And I got to go buy a gun for the shop, and I got to go buy a gun for the home. I can't do that. You're not going to allow me to exercise my right to self-defense in both places. I got to wait 30 days. And they really, really beat this guy up. The judge the state's attorney had a really bad day. He had no examples of any law where, in the past or across the United States that was an analog. Now, what they mean by that when they say that, like, hey, is this, an analog? Is this an analogous, to any other law? What all they're meaning is there another example of a law that's similar to this? Very similar to this. Have we done this anywhere else? And basically, nope, there's no example. So they came out quickly, like the next day, which was Thursday night, and said, okay, we're basically, you got to kind of do algebra on this thing because we won, and then they put a stay on it, and now they're lifting the stay. So you now can, thanks to the WIN case, the Nguyen-WIN, you now can purchase more than one firearm every 30 days. In fact, there is no limit on how many firearms you can purchase. You no longer have to wait 30 days.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Purchase and dross.
Say again?
Purchase versus dross as far as how this is concerned.
I'm not sure what do you mean?
So you can purchase.
Oh, you can dross them. I see what you're saying. I'm
Yes.
sorry. And there was a little bit of a delay. Friday morning, I like right off the bat, I was getting texts from gun shops, and they're like, hey, the dross system isn't accepting it yet.
Right.
And so our attorney went and said, hey, we got this decision. Let's go. Now, in all fairness, California DOJ is horrible at getting anything right on any timeline, let alone 24 hours. So by the end of Friday, the feedback I was getting is that people could dross more than one firearm. So you're good to go. But yeah, excellent. I see what you're saying now. Excellent question. Before, you could purchase 3 guns.
Right.
But then it took
dross.
Yeah, but then it took 90 days to get the
Correct.
the daggone guns, which
Right.
is totally ridiculous. Anyway, that is a huge win. Even if you think to yourself, gosh, Mike, I don't know if I could even afford 2 guns at the same time. This doesn't apply to me. Every single time we can get a court, especially the Ninth Circuit, to reaffirm what we already know, the Second Amendment is a right and everyone's entitled to it. Every single time we can do that. Even if you don't plan on ever purchasing 2 guns, even if you've never purchased 2 guns, every single time we can get the court to reaffirm that and lift these ticky-tack ridiculous laws. That is a good thing. But I want to make it crystal clear. Right now, you can purchase as many guns as you like. Now, the next question is usually, well, what's next? And the real honest answer is nobody really knows what's next. Until it happens, a couple things could happen. They could go to an en banc. Nothing could happen. They might say, hey, you know what? We had all 3 judges. By the way, all 3 judges on this panel said, yeah, we need to get rid of this. This is ridiculous. So there are other steps that could be taken. There are steps that might not ever be taken, and that would just wipe this out. And you could go for the rest of your life buying as many guns as you like, almost as if we live in a free country. So that's what's going on with the WIN case. Thank you so much to everybody involved. If you're not a San Diego County Gun Owners member, please become one. Please become a San Diego County Gun Owners member. These cases are not easy. The rest of what we do is not easy. If you're looking for a reason to come off the sidelines, do that. Also, if you are a San Diego County Gun Owners member, or even if you're not, show some love to Firearms Policy Coalition. Those guys did an amazing job, and they continue to do an amazing job. So I wanted to tell everybody about the Nguyen-WIN. Good news, right, Dave?
Absolutely.
Heck yeah. Okay, 2 things before we go to break here. Get your gun prom tickets. Go to gunprom.com. It is a benefit for you so that we can do the amazing things that we do in the courtroom, at the ballot box. We need you to become a member. And also, don't forget, San Diego Gun Show, September 7th and 8th in Escondido. There's a symposium that includes speakers and classes. It's been posted on gunownersradio.com. Get your early bird pricing until August 26th. You can save $2 by going to gunownersradio.com/gunshow. And when we get back, we're going to talk to the ever so awesome John Baldwin.
Hey, when's the last time you had a tune-up? Not for your car, for your air conditioner.
That makes more sense.
Well, if you want to avoid expensive repair bills, make sure you get regular maintenance for your AC. That's why we should call Straight Shooter Heating and Cooling. You get 1-hour appointment windows, no diagnostic fees, no dispatch fees, just straight up honest service you can trust. Call Straight Shooter Heating and Cooling today at 619-922-3937, and you'll get for $17.76 an AC tune-up. No bull, just cool. or book online at Straight Shooter AC. That's Straight Shooter AC.
Straight Shooter's awesome, by the way. That 1776 deal is just for Gun Owners Radio, folks. That's how dedicated they are. So please take advantage of it. So, all right. Okay, so our guest here today is...
As you look him up.
Yeah, did we switch this around?
Yeah, I was just noticing Dave mixed something up.
Something got switched.
I didn't mess. No, I just
blaming
did
it
the
on
commercials.
I know you.
Is your mic on?
Vincent Vega.
There we go. Okay, get right up on the mic. All right, now let's start the segment. Okay, welcome.
And we did so good with the first segment. Ad lib.
No, that's what happens. I'm
He
telling
used
you.
up all the good.
I'm going to start practicing.
Yeah, you used
Start
up all the
preparing.
good.
My good buddy and friend and San Diego County Gun Owners board member and tabletop champion, an all-around good guy and veteran, right?
Yeah, we could go there.
Yeah, is John Baldwin. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, get right up on that mic.
I'm on it.
So you're doing something really cool for San Diego County Gun Owners. First, let's talk about. Okay, so what do you got? What do you got planned for San Diego County Gun Owners?
Well, with the great work of Gun Owners Radio and San Diego County Gun Owners, including those tabletops, we've been able to bring the gun show back to San Diego. So,
Yeah.
awesome.
Fantastic.
So why not mire that up with a radio class?
Yeah, I think we could probably use a radio class around here. judging
Boy,
by-
could we.
But not just any old radio. What kind of radio are we talking?
Well, the questions I usually get when I get these questions about radio is, I got this ham radio. It's in my bag. It's in my preps, and I think I'm good to go there. And it's further from the truth than I think most people realize when you're actually trying to understand how to use these things. And so I put this class together a couple years ago based on sort of the questions I'd get, because I'm a new ham myself. I started 2020 started my ham journey into understanding it myself, and it's been a quick journey. So from just the 4 years to now, I've been able to get my general ham license. So I'm actually operating on HF and stuff like that. So getting into digital and things that connect me with folks all the way out into North Carolina, Arizona, and some interesting things in that realm. So
I want to get into I want to talk about the specifics because there's a bunch of lingo you just used and nobody knows what that means. I don't know what it means. So I want to get into that. But before I do, what is I've always kind of wondered, what's the purpose of ham? Why would people use it? Why not just use your cell phone? Or,
Yeah, it's a
you know what I
great
mean?
question.
Why do people use ham? Why does ham exist?
yeah, that's a great question. Well, it's, radio itself's been around for more than 100 years, and a lot of the technology we got that are still being used today comes out of World War II era technology. And so what I looked at when I wanted to dive into this topic a little further is how do I become more self-sufficient when it comes to information? And so I looked at, what are the capabilities that exist now, and sort of diving back into my background in intelligence and putting together products based off raw data and resource information that way. I wanted to give myself a capability that allowed me to not only plug in with my community, but I can plug in at the county level, and I can reach the strategic level nationally with, sort of reaching out with ham HF radio technology. And that's where I approached it from. And I realized there was a niche out there, and people were really in this day and age with information, not being able to get it, in terms of, censorship or misinformation or what have you. Being able to get your own information is something I looked at as being key to, building capability, and why that mattered into not only the gun community, but also like the community at large. And
So how are you getting information? You know what I mean? Like, where's the information coming? Is it like CB, or is it like AM FM radio, or like what's kind of the comparison, and where's the information, the independent information coming
Let's
from?
go back even farther.
Okay.
What is a ham operator? What is a ham operator?
So a ham operator is basically someone who's gone to the ARRL, the Amateur Radio Relay League, for testing and getting into a license category. So
Okay.
get on the air and broadcast on a segment of bands that exist. Bands are these frequencies that exist out in the electromagnetic spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So without getting too far deep into radio propagation theory, basically generating a frequency that can communicate and be received on another transceiver somewhere else.
Around the world.
Around the world, around the community, around the county.
And when you get on a certain station, you know who's on that other end, right?
Well, that's why we have the FCC now, and the license structure is. So here's how it works. So you want to get into ham radio, you want to understand where I go. So you definitely want to visit www.arrl.org, and you can look at where you can take a test near you. And then you can go get in your basic ham technician's level license, and that's going to get you in the game. That's going to get you through the door and being able to communicate through your little $25 radio, and you can communicate to anybody else who's registered through the FCC website and has gained that same license.
And this used to be very, very popular back in the day.
Yeah, very
It
popular.
kind of went away. It's not CBs, which is in the breaker,
Yeah.
hammer down truck driver.
Right.
This is I think it was really designed during the war for communication.
That's where we saw it hit its heyday, right? So,
Right.
And there's still amateur radio
Old guys.
folks out there that still do Morse code,
Right.
that still do all that continuous wave, and all that stuff we were doing in World War II. It's and really prevalent in Europe too when it comes to that sort of, I guess, radio presence. But you're absolutely right with the way it's sort of died off. But now we're kind of seeing it come back in a way.
Because it's clean communication.
Clean communication. So
Is that a good way of promoting it?
I don't know.
And the only reason I say
give out
clean,
dirty information.
well, when I say clean, is that you don't have people coming in and censoring you. You don't have people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's clean. So if you decide you're going to broadcast,
yeah.
then no one can come in and cut you off or turn you off, or unless you break FCC rules.
No, but I like where you're heading at with that, and that's sort of what I'm driving at with this course in general. Is I want to take somebody who has no idea of what ham is or any idea what technology involves, and be able to give them some basic skill levels that can take them from a radio that sits in their bag to being able to listen in on the local weather, at least. Showing them that you can actually download satellite imagery with radio tones and actually have that translated in some imager, so you
and
can
without
actually hear a
spending
weatherman.
$10,000.
Yeah, very low.
I didn't know that. You can transfer images using ham.
Yeah, so
I didn't know that. Is that new? Is that relatively new?
No, it's
No, it's been
Been
I'd
doing
say-
that for a while.
we've been doing it for a while. In fact, a lot of the stuff you see on your news, weather stations, is coming from satellites. So your GOES
Sure.
18s, our geospatial orbiting satellite, and you collect that basically off software-defined radios, and you can have that transcribed through a computer screen and show the imagery, but no more so, not just generally the imagery, but also the data that comes from that. You get infrared technology or infrared data from that. You can get all the same stuff you're seeing on the news stations that you can get with a little $40 USB thing you plug in a laptop
From
and
Radio
antenna.
Shack.
Yeah, basically going back to Radio Shack days, right? But
I don't think they don't exist
Oh,
anymore.
yeah, there's one right down the street.
Seriously?
No, I'm only
I
kidding.
was going to say, there's no Radio
I
Shack.
just saw something that you could be a general manager for Radio Shack and nobody would ever
Yeah,
Nobody
that's
would
true.
ever know.
nobody would ever know.
Yeah, from
It's on my
94 to
resume.
2005.
And
I
it's
was
truly
the
a
regional
community. Is
The
what
ham
it
radio
amounts-
is we're talking
a
about
community.
a community of folks, and what I see happening now with ham radio is we're getting away from sort of when you hear the word ham radio, you think of a guy with a ton of stuff in his closet or his truck or something,
Great big
tons of
machine.
antennas,
Yeah.
and what I'm seeing kind of break away from is less of that and more capability in an austere way. Like you can basically take a solar battery or a solar panel with a battery and be able to talk to somebody in Europe out in the middle of the desert
Right.
somewhere.
Right.
And more so, you got the technology with tablets that has evolved today. With, like I said, with a software-defined radio dongle, you can basically turn any inexpensive tablet into a police scanner and actually see activity pop up on the waterfall. So what I wanted to do with the class in general is just basically expose people to what it is today and take them from a person that has a radio in their bag to somebody that can actually use a radio in an emergency with very simple, affordable tools and technology that exists today that doesn't really require thousands and thousands of dollars. You can certainly spend thousands and thousands of dollars. But, if you just want to be a guy that wants to know what's going around in the community and kind of have, you be a resource for the community, it's really not that hard to do.
Or backup for your family. Say they live across the United States,
Yeah.
and you can't rely on cell service. You can always rely on ham.
Yeah.
And even if you're not in an area where cell is unreliable, think about when there's big, think 9/11, right? That system just gets so overloaded, everything becomes useless.
You
right?
got to
There's
remember,
times-
I just watched Red Dawn, so it's going to take a while.
About
for me.
time.
Yeah, but
About time.
This is like perfect.
Imagine
timing.
if they had ham. Are there commercial limitations? Like, could you just set up like the John Baldwin show on ham radio?
So what you're talking about, the old pirate radio days where you're broadcasting illegal. So there are limitations with the radio bands, and just so clearing up a misconception too about what the ham license structure is it's a self-policing institution. We don't have agents that are out there to knock on your door. The FCC is not going to send agents to come knock on your door for illegally transmitting on a Bofang UV5R, for instance.
Right. What is that?
It's a small, inexpensive Chinese radio
Gotcha.
that's ubiquitous in today's society as being considered a ham radio. So I've geared this course topic towards that particular radio because I feel like there's so much of the radio that's out there, and a lot of people just don't understand the functions of the radio itself. But what was I saying?
Commercial. So can you just
licensing.
Can you just sit there, every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock, put on a 1 hour show on ham radio? Is that, or am I missing something huge here?
There are limitations, but there is a niche thing out there, even with TV. You have folks out there that are broadcasting old, shows on, just like how you'd see the old, was it not the Wayne's World? Was it Wayne's World? I guess when they were broadcasting on PBS or something late at night.
Yeah.
There's still stuff out there.
Public access.
Public access. Thank you. There's still hobbyists out there that are trying to do that. But I'll state that there are limitations on the licensing structure itself. So, if, say for instance, you have a ham technician's license, which is the very basic bare minimum requirement to actually use a ham radio frequency. And then you got certain limitations on the amount of wattage you can.
I think what he's going down is if you want to do the Baldwin show every Monday at 5 o'clock for an hour, can you do it?
There certainly with thousands and thousands of dollars, you probably could still. But there's still hobbyists out there that do this.
Let's talk about that. I'm still a little. Still want to know a lot more details. Like what are the thousands of dollars go towards? Yeah. Do they have? Are they channels?
Because he has always wanted to be a ham. Hey, if the idea of Kamala issuing an executive order for gun control makes you mad, you need to go to GunProm. GunProm is the ounce of prevention in the fight for the Second Amendment. Lawsuits are critical, but they take $1 million and decades to fix bad gun control laws. Instead, let's create a future where gun control laws never get passed. Going to GunProm helps get more pro-gun local officials elected so bad guns control laws never get passed. So bad laws never get passed. So go to gunprom.com now and get your tickets. Okay. So we just want to kind of go back and kind of do a wrap because I have a sneaky feeling being a ham operator could go for another hour.
Oh, we could. So much.
We're going to talk through this whole segment here, and we're going to answer some of the questions in this segment on ham, and then we're going to wrap up, find out exactly how people take the class. Can anybody be a ham operator?
So,
or only if you're not kosher or ham.
So I want to kind of cover a lot of information real quickly. I want folks to consider like what ham radio frequencies are in a way that will make a little bit more sense as to what you can and can't do with these things. Okay. So first off, think of it like a freeway. All right, you got a fast lane, a slow lane, and then the middle somewhere in between. So if in this case, you have to have a license to go in this lane and that lane and that lane. And that's kind of how you can generally look at how like the ham radio bands work. And what I'm talking about with bands is a set of frequencies in a range that folks can use to pass information, to communicate with their voice, or to run television shows that some hobbyists are still out there doing. So with those certain frequencies, though, it's going to require a lot more power, a lot more equipment, and a lot larger antennas because to understand how that stuff works, you kind of need a basic concept of what a wavelength is. So wavelengths can grow very large. To reach across the world, you're going to need something that's like 20 meters long in terms of a wavelength. So what that means is you needed a very large antenna. So that's why we see these very large antennas that are out there with these high-powered VHF radio stations, for instance. They're using a lot of power to transmit that signal. So why we regulate that is there's a lot of bands that are designated for different things. We got first responders, we got police bands, we got a lot of designated bands for certain activities. And so that's how we sort of police and regulate the ham radio band plan is what it's called. And so to basically go back, though, to get into the game, to get on that freeway, the very bare minimum right now is a ham technician's license, which is a 35-question test. You can find that simply by Googling ARRL.org to find a test location near you, and you can simply study it's a test bank of 430 questions. I've known people that can just go in there and memorize the entire test bank and go in and take take the 35 question test and ace it.
And it's just like rules and regs if you're going to be a ham operator.
Yep, understanding things
Common
I'm talking
sense.
about now.
Common sense.
And I'd like to dispel a myth about the emergency use of ham radio. So I get the question all the time. I'm just going to use, or not really a question, they just tell me that they're going to use their ham radio when it's an emergency. Why do I even bother with getting a license? Well, first, you're not, because generally there's, like we talked about earlier, there's designated frequencies for emergencies and first responders. So if you're using frequencies, you're tying up those bands, you're tying up those frequencies, and you're generally causing interference.
And FCC will come get you.
It's not even the FCC, it's your neighbor or it's your buddy Bob, that are really hopped up to go do that, because there's other group of hobbyists out there that love to do that. They'll go find you if you're transmitting illegally or in an area. There's folks out there that make it their life's journey to go find you.
Right. Jeez.
Yeah.
It's like the wild, wild west.
Yeah.
Well,
in a way.
Kinda, yeah.
So
Which is it's kind of cool, right?
it is kind of cool, and I like it because, first of all, just as Dave talked about earlier, we're clean information, right? So what I saw going down in 2020, like most of us saw, was a huge issue with information. What it came to the type of information I'm allowed to see, to the type of information I can get, and I wanted to be self-sufficient with information.
And
so
not with this.
And exactly, believe it or not, this is a ham radio.
Mm-hmm.
It's like with 5 channels though, except we pay $100 or something more dollars a month to use it. So
Because the technology's similar.
the technology's similar. All we're doing the same very thing with very high frequencies or ultra high frequencies to carry a lot of data, and those datas are decrypted with magic unicorns, but basically bells and tones that tell the phone what a 1 and 0 looks like, and 1s and 0s, of course, give us binary code, and commuting goes from there.
And off we go.
So I wanted to go, and like I said, a lot of this probably stems back from my intelligence background of being able to take raw data and raw source information and put that together in a meaningful way that I can dispel what information is true or not true for my own set of eyes. For instance, anybody with a weather station can go track their own weather, and see for themselves, is the temperature rising. Like becoming our own scientist is kind of what I was driving at with like ham radio technology. So I learned a lot about ham really quickly to get to that point of being able to get information for myself. So
you talk about 2020, which was COVID.
Right, COVID.
So what was happening? You, John Baldwin, you're sitting in front of your ham radio, and what's coming over the radio that's helping you get better, clearer, more information? You know what I mean? Like, is there other people in other areas who are saying, "Hey, here's what's going on in my neighborhood," or like?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. So we saw a lot of cities that were, Twitter, for instance, was being censored a lot during that time, where people were reporting. This actually goes back to when you were looking at the Arab Spring in the early 2010s and in that era, we were seeing Twitter being used as an information resource coming out of these countries. So I saw the value of information from a decentralized way, and getting the message out was really important for that. But then,
are people talking to you directly, or are you listening in on conversations and broadcasts? Or both?
So let me take it to where I'm at right now. So where I'm at right now is I have, there's digital applications you can use with ham radio bands, and you can generally make what I would consider a more raw Twitter, which is getting a keyboard message out to another keyboard somewhere out there and passing information that way. So that way, let's say the grid goes down and everything's down. Well, I know I can still tie this thing into a battery somewhere in the middle of the desert with a solar panel, and I can still get a message out on my little ham radio.
Wow.
And somebody else on the other side of the planet, or in New York or in Washington, can get that message, and I can get their message back. So I saw that as a very valuable tool in today's day and age, where information is so filtered or just, I'll leave it at that. Where information in today's day and age is a little bit more weird than it used to be, I think.
Wasn't it on what was that remake that Will Smith was in, End of the World? It was the Omega Man, but
I Am Legend.
Yeah, I Am Legend.
Yeah.
Didn't he? Wasn't he using ham radio, and wasn't he like broadcasting with ham or something like that? Or?
It's so shortwave radio. And believe it or not, shortwave radio, still out there. Still radio talk show hosts out there doing shortwave broadcasts, and that's again going back to the old World War II era technology and people using tubes to get messages out. So it's still a reflection of that. But what we've done today is we're taking the concept, and we're applying new digital tools to that, and new, computing technology.
And it enhances it.
And we can effectively make what I consider like a very raw Twitter. And if Twitter goes down, for instance, or if the whatever goes down, you have some backup means of getting information.
Well, this is where I said if you had a family that lived in Maine, New York, Colorado, Denver, and San Diego,
right.
If you guys were all ham operators, it doesn't make any difference what happens. As long as you have power, solar panel, you can either type or you can speak.
Right. And that's
because what you do is you go, hey, this is, I think you have a call number you have to use. I'm looking for, and you just blast it out there.
Yeah.
And if the person on the other end is listening, they can respond.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, too, is a lot of folks want to know how they can reach grandma in an emergency.
Right.
And if I got this radio and I give grandma the radio, is she going to be good to go?
And showed her how to use it.
I mean, effectively, you can if you're in the same neighborhood. But when we're talking about like regional communication, that's where we're talking about the equipment gets a little bit more expensive and the power.
So if it's cross country, then all of you are going to have to spend a little bit of money.
Well, yes and no. And this is kind of where I want to, and this is why the class I'm doing is important, because I want to show.
Yeah, let's talk about the class. So it sounds like there are uses both daily and big emergencies or whatever, but talk about the class.
Yeah, so the class I designed is basically kind of showing folks capability. What can I, John Baldwin, do in San Diego with a little $25 radio?
Right.
And we can do very interesting things with a $25 radio. Mm-hmm. Okay, so say I want to be a little bit more. I want to be more effective at a regional level. I want to have a little bit more aperture in the region of Southern California. Okay, well, I can do that with a little bit more power and a little bit more skill set. And then if I want to communicate strategically, there's a lot of things, getting back to kind of the old use of ham and the intelligence connection is, we call this thing indications and warning. You hear that word a lot. Like, I'm getting indications and warning of activity. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I'm looking at with exposing folks to what radio is access to the things that are available now, even without a radio. But using a radio, you can get indications and warning of certain things out there. And we still have the Air Force's high frequency global communication service that broadcasts emergency action messages. That's a lot to say. But what that is,
but then your class is going to teach this.
I'll show them everything.
Basically, people who have zero experience with ham, and they're not obligated. Maybe they decide they never want to go any further with ham.
Yep.
But you're going to this is like the very basics of, hey, everything you wanted to know on a total layman basis.
Yep.
And how long a class would this be?
So we're looking at 50 minutes, and within that 50 minutes, I plan to do exactly what Mike's talking about here, is exposing them to what they can do now. Sometimes they may walk out going, I don't even need a ham license. And that's what I want to show folks is whether you want to get into ham, the hobby, or if you want to get into information collection for your own means, you may not even need a ham license radio to do that. Sometimes it's as simple as buying a $30 dongle, they call it a dongle, on Amazon and plugging that into a tablet, and you're up and running.
Right.
And because you're not broadcasting, you're not transmitting, you're just simply using it to collect information.
Mm-hmm.
So like intro to the concept, and then to kind of let people fill out where they want to go with it.
Exactly.
Okay.
If you want to go down and do hobby TV, or if you want to go do Morse code, there's a world out there of radio for you. But what I'm trying to get at with this particular course is sort of centered on the disaster-minded folks, or the prepper, we call it, minded folks who want to have some means.
Well, that's where I thought this is where you were going in the long run.
Yeah, so we can set up like, say, for instance, you want to have a neighborhood. In your neighborhood, you want to have a Meshtastic node set up with house to house.
Yeah, get the neighbors all together.
Get the neighbors together, so that way when the power goes out, you guys can still talk about, is Harry okay up there? I know they need some medication. They got diabetes and things, so we want to get insulin up there. So
and it's limited seating, right?
Yeah.
How do they get a hold of you?
So they get a hold of me either by going to gunownersradio.com and signing up to go to the gun show. On the 7th, they're going to be doing 50 minutes of radio, and that's where you're going to learn everything we talked about today to show you how you can be your own information collection resource.
Yeah, you're teaching on
Saturday, September 7th at 3 p.m.
That's right.
Awesome, John.
Come stop by. Come hang out
at the gun show.
Support Gun Owners Radio.
Hey, thank you again, Condor Outdoor, for supporting the upcoming gun show on September 7th and 8th. Another reason to go to the gun show is you'll be able to win their new Nomad backpack. The Nomad is a versatile and durable backpack for outdoor enthusiasts and urban explorers alike. So if you're looking for the best in tactical gear, look no further than Condor Outdoor. Use code GOR for a 15% discount off the website, condoroutdoor.com. Use code GOR for a 15% discount.
All right, we're supposed to have calling guest, but it looks like he hasn't called in yet. So we're going to talk to the handsome Mike Dasargo. How you doing, man?
Good, man. How you been?
Excellent. How have you been? How's business? How's life?
Life is good, man. Been on the road, heading out to Puerto Rico this coming weekend to work with some of their law enforcement with Rob Pincus.
Hey, I know Rob Pincus.
Yeah. We'll be doing some team teaching out
You
there.
know, every time I talk about Rob Pincus, do you remember that movie Armed and Dangerous with John Candy? Remember they went to that party and they made up names, you know?
Yeah,
One of them
yeah.
was Pincus. And I always think about that. I don't know if I've ever asked him about that, but every time.
It
Anyway.
might be an alias. We don't know.
If it's not food, it's movies.
Especially 80s movies. Horrible 80s movies.
I
Yeah.
bet those are the best.
Those are the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah.
So, what kind of training are you doing in Puerto Rico with law enforcement?
Intuitive defensive shooting, intuitive defensive carbine, taking some folks through that stuff and really focusing on the counter ambush aspect of it.
Counter ambush.
Yeah,
Holy
yeah.
cow.
Yeah, and that's a bit of what I want to talk about today because a lot of it is also transferable from the executive protection industry. And so there's some core concepts in executive protection. The nature of executive protection is essentially counter ambush, where we're trying to prevent an attack on principle.
The nature, say that one more time. The nature of executive protection is counter ambush.
Yes, and that doesn't necessarily mean a physical attack. Predominantly, it's saving them from embarrassment. And so there's some preventative things.
Saving who from embarrassment?
The principal or our client.
Really? Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? What kind of embarrassment?
There may be some things. For example, issues with paparazzi, they may not. And
see.
there's also fans that come up to celebrities,
Yeah.
and they don't want to burn those bridges. So oftentimes it's the executive protection agent that will intervene, so the actual client doesn't have to say no or reject that person.
Gotcha.
And oftentimes that client will tell the agent to know it's okay. So they become the hero in some regards. But
So ambush. So when I think of ambush, I think of like Vietnam, walking down a trail, whatever. But you're just talking about someone approaching someone and they're totally unexpected.
the unexpected,
Yeah.
universally across the board, whether it's a physical attack, kinetic attack, or whether it's something economically, monetarily for a corporation, there's these kind of things that take us off guard, and that's what we want to be ready for, is the unexpected.
And executive protection is what we is there a difference between executive protection and a bodyguard? Or is
Yes.
that, you know what I mean? Like what's the difference?
Aside from the terminology,
Executive director isn't just or executive protection isn't just a fancy term for bodyguard.
it is, and I think it's earned in the sense of the degree of nuance.
Isn't it client related?
It may
Like
be.
an executive maybe is going to need a lot more protection than, say, a bodyguard.
To some degree.
Yeah,
I
a
mean,
bodyguard, maybe you'll go to the club and you got this
Yeah.
300-pound guy
That's-
walking along.
Right.
If anybody touches you, that guy will smush them. But an
Right.
executive, it's a little bit more enhanced, maybe more people,
Right, we
more
do a
equipment.
full risk analysis.
Right,
We do the
exactly.
advance. It's far more sophisticated in its levels of protection.
Bodyguard is more of a brute.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so in the industry, it's kind of looked down upon for to pick up bodyguards because they're essentially just
Thugs.
a presence, a physical
They're
presence.
thugs. They'll
essentially.
thump you on the noggin. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're a deterrent at best, right?
And then
a
the
liability
training
at
is
worst.
totally different between the two as well.
Oftentimes a lack of training,
Well, yeah, because they don't really need much training.
right? They're usually picked up for their size.
Yeah,
right?
that's exactly
So-
right. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a few, and on that point, the first thing I want to hit on is discernment, right? That's something that separates bodyguards from executive protection, is how we interact with potential threats. And as a gun owner, we don't want to look at everything as a nail if we're thinking that we're at the hammer, right? And so being able to discern what an actual threat is from a perceived threat. So if we've ever had to shop for a white SUV or say a long minivan or something, right? And you've never noticed it before, but now that you're shopping for it, you see them everywhere. It's called the pop-out effect. And so that discernment comes from exposure to the stimulus. The technical term is called registry. Register it in your frame of thought and your conscious awareness. So something that gun owners can do to improve their ability to protect themselves with the firearm is actually become aware of the indicators associated with violence or an ambush. Something simple that people can do if they haven't been around violence is there's people like the active protection guy that does YouTube
Active self-protection?
Thank you, active
Yeah.
self-protection. Yeah, and he does after-action
John Korea.
reviews of certain critical
Oh, yeah,
incidents
John Korea.
that happen, right? And so that's kind of a second-hand way, aside from getting first-hand training. But the more you expose yourself, you can start to see emerging patterns and start to recognize it early. It's kind of a piece of the tradecraft. In driving in Mexico, for example, the baseline is to be bumper locked, right? But if you're not in that setting and someone keeps hovering around the rear quarter panel, what does that even mean to most people? Most people don't think anything of it other than it may be in their blind side. But if your principal is an at-risk individual who's targeted, that may be an indicator for a pit maneuver, right? So that may mean something different. But whether you react or not comes down to what is that indicator coupled with everything else that's happening in the environment, right? And so this kind of discernment is something I highly recommend for gun owners, is being able to become familiar with what an actual threat looks like, what are the behavioral indicators, what are the baseline, and how you manage your attention, because a lot of people blame situational awareness and the person not paying attention. But as an agent in charge, that person has to communicate comms with their team, with the client, with the client's company, right? And so they're on their cell phone, they're doing different things, they're multitasking, but there might be something that pops out of baseline and that captures their attention because of their experience, right? So,
Well, you ever have the example where you're driving down the road and all of a sudden the car up in front, you know the guy,
right.
so you pull up alongside him,
Yeah.
and he will not look to you.
Yep.
I mean, he constantly looks straight ahead. That's the worst part of it. So you want to be somebody to be totally aware of their surroundings at all times.
Yeah, manage your attention, and most often than not, people are focused on the task at hand.
Right.
So what you described is someone who's just on their commute, not thinking about anything else except their own inner thoughts, not expecting to see their friend.
Somebody to pull up and see a friend. Yeah.
Right. And so being able to shift your attention, that's where instead of talking about mindset, I talk more about mind state, being aware of your mind state, your state of mind. So once you capture yourself that you're daydreaming and you're in the driver's hypnosis, then you may want to snap out of that, especially if you're driving through a higher risk area where there's a higher statistical chance of motor vehicle accidents, like the merging in the Golden Triangle or something.
I drive my wife crazy because I'm constantly looking around.
Right.
Constantly. I don't know, maybe it's because of my military training, but I am constantly looking around. You'll never catch me just looking straight ahead and not be aware.
Yeah, and I love
you never
that.
know.
And in the grand scheme of things, stay curious. You know,
Always.
I mean, it
Always.
doesn't necessarily have to be threat induced, but looking around, staying curious, learning from your environment. It's a wonderful thing.
I'm not so bad that when I go to a restaurant, I have to sit with my back against a wall.
That's it.
I don't go
1000%.
that far, but
1000%. Because there's other behavioral indicators. And so there's a thing called tradecraft, which is you want to stay low profile. It's kind of like the open carry, right? If you're open carrying, you may make yourself a target.
Right.
As an agent, a lot of times they want you to be low profile and blend in with your environment. And you don't want to look like RoboCop. Right? You don't want to be back to the wall, kind of, but understanding that.
Constantly. I mean, the look on your face will give it away.
Yeah. And so as a gun owner, it's kind of the same thing. People who start to carry for the first time might like constantly check, is like, am I printing? You know, there might be some behavioral things that they're broadcasting.
Well, even Michael was saying one time he went someplace and left his gun at home.
Yep.
And he was, you were saying that you were totally a mess the whole day.
Yeah, that's happened a couple times. But I remember the first time I almost left my house right after I got my CCW.
Right, that's what he was saying.
I'd been carrying for like a month, and I was like, I already took my gun off, and I was like, I'm just gonna go get a, whatever,
go to
gallon of milk
7-Eleven
or
or
something. Yeah,
something,
and then I put my hand on the doorknob, and I'm like, what if this is the time? What if
every
this is the
time, this is the day.
And now it's like, it's wallet, keys, phone, and gun.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
That actually brings me to the next point, which is the defense in depth concept from executive protection. And what defense in depth is concentric layers of redundancy in case you don't have your firearm. What other measures of protection, whether it's pepper spray, whether it's unarmed skills, or even if it's preventative manners, understanding that maybe I'll take less risky routes this time and kind of compensate for that risk, right? And something that gun owners can take away with is their home defense plan, right? It's not enough just to own a gun. You actually want to treat it as part of your disaster preparedness. So your earthquake drills with your family, if you ever do that, fire drills, and home invasion drills. And not only that, you could take that crisis management plan and apply it to your travel security. And often people don't think about staying in a hotel on the second, third floor is optimal for risk mitigation because it's above the first floor where it's easier for theft to occur. I shouldn't say easy, but less obstructive, for lack of better words. But it's not so high up on the floor if there is a hotel fire, an earthquake, that you have to go down a tremendous flight of stairs to evacuate. And so these are just some things to think about in creating certain levels of redundancy and how you're going to go about your day, not necessarily in a paranoid way, but in a sensical kind of, let me calculate this risk.
You ever notice when somebody does go to a hotel, they want to get in the highest floor possible?
Yes.
I never understood
I
that.
stayed on the one time in my life that I remember, at least as an adult, I stayed on the ground floor in a hotel, and it wasn't too long ago. It was a couple years ago, and somebody tried to open the door.
Wow.
Somebody tried to open the door, and they were going down the line.
Seeing what was unlocked?
Trying to see what was unlocked. And the hotel didn't care at all. They did. Everybody reported, and they're like,
Even after you put 5 shots through the door, you didn't say anything?
So, Mike, if you were to give like 3 actually, I'll have to wait and come back.
All right. A self-defense event happens in seconds. And in the time it takes to listen to this commercial, your life could change forever. I pray you're never forced to shoot in self-defense, but if you must, then you must be ready. That's why USCCA exists, because every responsibly armed American should have the training and education to navigate a self-defense situation. And should you ever need it, the 24/7 critical response team is right there for you. Get signed up with our friends Adam Bendas. Give him a call today, 619-318-6803. Signing up is real easy. Get the education and protection you need today. Enjoy the peace of mind if you ever are in a self-defense incident. Give Adam a call, 619-318-6803. Be positive, not reactive.
Okay, so we have a winner. If you'd like to register to win, all you got to do is join our email list. Go to gunownersradio.com and join our email list, and you could possibly win some cool swag. This week's winner is Amy Ree. Amy, all you have to do is email us at prizes@gunownersradio.com to claim your T-shirt or hat. Don't forget to give us the size. Also, real quick, wanted to remind everybody that tomorrow at 7 p.m., we're having Lead Talks. And that guest tomorrow is Jason Martin. He's going to talk about picking the right firearm. So join us live tomorrow at 7 p.m. on Facebook or YouTube or X. Just look for Gun Owners Radio, and we'll go live at 7 p.m. That's every Monday at 7 p.m.
That's a great topic. I know a lot of people that need to listen to something like that.
Why
Far too
are you looking at me?
Far
That
too many
felt
people.
very-
That's a great question. I don't know. Just far too many people buy the wrong gun, and they don't know what they're looking for. Sometimes they read reviews, or maybe they my friend liked this gun, or they let the salesperson talk them into whatever
That's
the
the
salesperson gets the perks.
Yeah.
And so far too many people buying the wrong gun for either for them or for what they need it for.
Yeah.
So that's
So you had a
great topic.
question for Mike. You were going to ask Mike a question right before we went to commercial.
Yeah, I had a question. I was just like, if you were to kind of like cap your the executive protection concept, like what would be it's just gun owners, not as professionals ourselves in that realm. What would be like the top 3 things from your perspective that a gun owner, someone who has got their own firearm for their own self protection, kind of needs to kind of have the forefront of their mind? Like, give me the top 3.
That would be, the first one was situational awareness and being able to discern what should capture your attention, certain behavioral indicators. The second is defense in depth, understanding the concentric layers of defense in your planning beyond just the firearm itself, but the totality of your defensive plan. And that all kind of ties together with the last point, which is understanding risk. Right? And so oftentimes people just look at risk as a matter of probability.
Right.
But if you have a pot of water and you try not to spill it, there's some perceived penalty. If you spill it, you might get wet, right?
Right.
But our behavior tends to change if that pot of water is boiling. And we start moving with a pot of water. It might go slower, it might go faster if you're not using oven mitts. But there's a behavioral change that impacts your ability to transport that water. So as a gun owner, understanding how the impact influences your behavior, particularly when it comes to defensive shooting. So as an example, marksmanship, right? It's very common where we'll line up the sights and take our time to take that shot. we might miss, and we kind of figure out we went either low left, I might be anticipating, let me try again, and okay, there it is, right? Or I go high right, okay, let me try to adjust and make the course correction and impact. A blind risk that happens there is a false sense of improvement because you're actually not learning how to shoot that shot from that position on your first attempt. You're actually learning from your previous error, which is not reflective of defensive shooting. When in fact, when you take that precise shot in a defensive shooting incident, that target is likely not going to be there anymore. They're probably going to move. And so that opportunity is no longer there.
Right.
So a simple piece of advice is only afford yourself one attempt for maybe that 1 inch circle. If you miss, change position, move 1 or 2 feet to the left, try again. You missed, move 1 feet to the right, try again. But it's only that first round hit that matters. And repeating that pattern allows you the ability to perform in that context. Now, particularly when we start adding things like impact, what happens if you miss? You know, if someone has your kid hostage, that's a significant impact on your
Consequences.
ability to apply that skill.
Right.
Whereas, you know, we might have a timer and be able to just throw that downrange all day, every day. But that's going to have a behavioral impact on how you apply your skill. So that's something to consider, that there are certain blind risks that is not often communicated as a gun owner that I think that should be talked about more, and how we can take steps to remediate those blind risks.
So you bring up a good point.
Yeah.
You know, just shooting down range at a target is one thing. But if somebody's got your child,
Yeah.
would the only way to overcome that is with more and more and more and more training?
Because
The shock of somebody having your child,
Right.
I think would throw everything off.
1,000%. Yeah. So the key difference between more and more training and someone holding your child is that someone's holding your child. Right. And so it's the context. There's two components there. There's a psychological distress and emotional valence. There's also the processing of information. So those three factors, how much of that do we practice over and over and over again? And so that comes down to your training method. How do we introduce some level of cognitive load where you didn't know you were going to have to take this critical shot, right? Because out of nowhere, the gunfight happens, the guy ducks, sees your kid, grabs him. He didn't know he was going to do that, right?
And he's holding them center
And now
mass.
he's holding them. Now you got to make a decision, right? And so this kind of cognitive load, this kind of emotional valence. There are certain psychological impacts. I kind of like taking an M. Night Shyamalan approach to training my students, and because it is
M. Night Shyamalan.
yeah,
What is
Not
that?
that I like
the
that. I
plot
don't-
twist, right? The unexpected. We started the talk with the unexpected, and so this only works if it's not expected.
I was going to say that dude didn't have guns in any of it. Think of how many movies
Yeah.
he made where someone with a gun would have solved all their problems, right? Like that stupid Alien movie. Just shoot the guy. Why are they hitting him with a baseball bat? Shoot him. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good, man. I agree 1,000%. But yeah, that's a plot twist. If you had a gun, it's like, hey, it's a 2-minute movie.
Yeah, but if
Fantastic.
somebody's got your kid, you may drop your gun because they've got your kid.
Many people's first
And
inclination.
then he shoots you.
Right, and that would be not the wisest decision.
No.
So it's about calculating risk. Like, what are my odds here? Am I going
Yeah.
to trust the will of a bad guy
Yeah.
to suddenly become peaceful?
And how many kids do I actually have?
Right. Are we Philip Rivers?
I figured Mike would get a kick out of that.
So, Mike, I have a
Yeah.
question for you.
Yeah.
So, like listening to you talk and kind of give your thoughts. I love to hear you just speak and just your philosophy to things and how you process things, and all this information is fantastic. I'm curious. You're going to be holding a course or class at the gun show, right? And so it's different than executive protection, though. So can you share a little bit about that, about what you're going to be discussing at the gun show, so we know
Yeah.
what to look forward to when we get there?
Yeah, I got about 50 minutes to introduce the carbine to people. Get a lot of interest with the intuitive defensive carbine.
Now, people that don't know, what is a carbine?
A carbine is essentially a rifle that may be short to some degree.
Not sawed off.
No, nothing like that. But
Not in California.
16 inches. And there are people that still have legal AR pistols in California, so that may qualify as a carbine. But it also applies to standard 16-inch rifles as well. And there's a lot of common errors. In martial arts, they always talk about letting the weapon become an extension of your body, right?
Right.
And when it comes to a rifle, it's a two-handed weapon. You have 4 points of contact. And so how do you interface that with the end user so it's not awkward? A lot of people kind of bring it up and then they move their head to the optic.
Right.
And then if they have to do something and they're integrating like trauma medicine, and so now you have to store your weapon and try to do something. Now it's like bumping everywhere. And so essentially what I want to walk people through is the fundamentals and the dynamics of how to integrate and move the rifle around your body. You know,
Okay.
So it becomes a part of your natural movement, whether you need to stow it because you need to do something, or
When's your class?
at the gun symposium.
Which date?
Remember?
Seventh.
September
Right.
7th, September 8th.
Yes. It's
Check out gunownersradio.com. It's going to have the schedule of the symposium and the classes.
Sounds
And
to
look
me like he's
for
doing both days.
Mike Dasargo.
Handsome Mike Dasargo.
that's
11
actually
o'clock on
the
Saturday.
There
All
you
right,
go.
very good.
Prime
It is.
time, Mike.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
Thanks, buddy.
Awesome job.
You're a good instructor. You really can get it out, and for the layman, and I appreciate that. Hey, Not Me is for women, by women, and is designed to help women with training, purchasing a gun, and getting a concealed carry permit. And guess what? It's free. And if you're a woman or you know a woman who needs help, have her sign up, and we will give her the help she needs. To sign up, just go to notmesd.org.
All right. So, as we all know, it's election season. We have a very cool guest with some very interesting news, and I wanted to bring him on. You all in the gun world know him not only as a San Diego County Gun Owners founding board member, but you also know him on the on getting rid of the on the lawsuit that's going to get rid of the assault weapon ban. Which, yes, everybody listening, I did a little air quotes thing. I know, and that is Jim Miller. Jim, how are you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on, Mike.
You bet. So Jim is running for re-election, school board in Cajon Valley. And you have something big happened this week, something that you were working on for a while, and you got it passed, and I wanted you to come on and talk about it.
Well, I appreciate that, Mike. So what we did at Cajon Valley is we created the Cajon Valley Parents' Bill of Rights. Now, what that is, it is a conglomeration listing all in one place what you as a parent of your child have rights to, everything from knowing about changes in their official record, knowing what's going on, having access to the school, being able to actually go to classes, listing all of those things out. Now, those are already in code, those already exist, but not every parent knows that they have those rights. The interesting thing, though, is then we took another step in what took so long. So let me explain that. Over the last 12 months, give or take, there have been a number of lawsuits in the state of California against different school districts or by school districts, both federal and state, over what they're calling an anti-outing or a transgender disclosure policy. Because there's a current administrative regulation that says that parents aren't supposed to be told if children can come in and change the pronouns. And San Diego Unified, as an example, is going well above and beyond that as an example. But as we tracked those lawsuits, because I wanted to do something about that, but you don't want to do anything stupid. Remember, I'm a lawyer by trade. I don't want to make something. If I draft it, I want to make it defensible to my school district. So we tracked those lawsuits. We looked at the motions. We figured out what was going on, and then while that was going on, AB 1955, drafted by Chris Ward, and those of us in the Second Amendment community, we know about Chris Ward, who's now in the Assembly, formerly a San Diego City Council member, came up with this law that says school districts cannot draft a policy that mandates or requires staff and employees to tell parents if their kids, again, change their pronouns, want to use a different bathroom, want to go to a different locker facility. That is completely inappropriate, trying to keep secrets from parents. So of tracking the lawsuits, what we drafted, what I've worked on, and what I think is very defensible, is I dovetailed, you have a right as a parent, absolute right, it's already in law, both state and federal, to have access to your children's medical records and their mental health records, and to be part of their treatment if they're under 12 years old. Well, Cajon Valley is a K-8 school district, so let me tell you right now, that covers 85, almost 90% of our kids, right? So by drafting what we just drafted and making it allocated to kids under 12, we are now able to tell the parents what's going on. Now, we also made another nuance to the other, there's a few of these things floating around out there, but they're requiring teachers to do things. I took that out. All right. If you require teachers or classified staff to do something, all of a sudden that becomes a union bargain for work obligation, for lack of a better term. Well, I didn't want to have to deal with our unions. And I'm going to tell you, at Cajon Valley, they helped us stay open during COVID. So, kudos to them. But I didn't want to have to put that on the teachers. I wanted to maintain the parent-teacher relationship, the student-teacher relationship. So what we did is we turned around and put it on administration. We have direct authority over the administration. So it avoids union issues. It avoids you're telling parents that these kids are changing their pronouns and gender issues for kids under 12, which dovetails exactly with their current rights for your mental health and physical health. And by doing that, we got real solid, right? I don't think that we can be challenged on that. I think it's very true that we're trying to help kids, especially the youngest ones, where 3 years ago we put counselors at every school site. That's 27 school sites. That's pretty unusual for K through 8 as well. So Cajon Valley has done a lot of things that are cutting edge, and I'm very proud of it. I mean, I'll tell you that there's a lot of people who's pressed me to go faster than this, but faster is not always better. Now we can defense what we were doing. If we had passed something earlier that didn't have all these different provisions in it, we'd be sued, and we would definitely not be successful.
You should be proud. And like you said, it took you, a few months, more than a few months, like 8 months or so. I know you've been working on this a long time, but at the end of the day, you got the government out from in between parents and students, and you did it in a way that, like you said, can be defended in court, a way that they won't be able to attack you in court, I guess is what I should say, which was great. I've watched you, you got elected in what, 2016?
16 is my first term.
2016, I've watched all the extremists come for you. I've watched the anti-gun extremists come for you, and you stood up from on the dais and didn't move a centimeter. In fact, you put your name on an important lawsuit that we're working on. You went one further. I've seen the COVID extremists came, and you did everything you possibly could to keep the schools open, and you worked with people to make sure that kids got an education. You turned Cajon Valley into a model when it comes to security. Well, all the other school boards were passing these useless resolutions asking for gun bans. You were making sure that the resources and law enforcement and everything was in place to make sure that those kids were safe in your school. The LGBT extremists came, and you fought them back. And every turn, what most people say they stand up for, you've actually stood up for it. And I just can't imagine, that your re-election is so important, and we're very, very proud that you're a board member, and B, an endorsed candidate. So thank you so much, Jim.
I appreciate that, Mike. And when you put it in a historical perspective, it's true. These extreme sides, I don't care whether it's left or right. I really don't. They keep wanting to push after the school boards because they feel that the school boards are the low-lying fruit. Why did San Diego County gun owners, why did we come into play? We came into play for the local races and the local issues, right? Because school board members will eventually move up to city council, assembly, whatnot. And it's very reminiscent. I got a guy running against me right now. All he wants to do is be a politician. If the left suits him, he panders to the left. If the right suits him, he panders to the right. He's very Nathan Fletcher that way. And you know something? Those are the type of people that scare me more than the overall zealots, because those are the chameleons that, if you're not really paying attention, you can be fooled by. And
by the way, your opponent I've seen is trying to take credit for your work here on this Parents' Bill of Rights. Whereas he didn't do a thing. He didn't do one thing to make sure that this happened.
He didn't put a sentence in, not a single sentence.
It's kind of funny, Jim. What's funny is I think the best way to term this is when you and I were sitting down talking, and you ran for judge years ago, and that's when we first met. And then when we started San Diego County Gun Owners, you were like I said, a founding board member. And at the time, it was us and some other folks going, hey, you know what? The establishment isn't standing up for things that they need, that we believe in, the things that they need to stand up for, And you're in office. San Diego County Gun Owners is well established, and it's like all these folks with not all, but a very small, tiny handful of people who had no experience, who were not around when you and I were fighting, when other people were fighting years ago. They were nowhere to be found, and suddenly they're up in arms and think they're going to solve the world's problems, when meanwhile they're just making them worse and taking credit for your work. It's amazing.
And that's, you and I have both talked about that in the Second Amendment world. I mean, where were these pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment folks when you and I, and you even before me, when we were in the trenches? Where were they when we were trying to find appropriate plaintiffs for various lawsuits? Oh, well, I don't want to get involved. No, I don't want to put my name on that, but I'll support you on the backside. Oh, I'll fill out this questionnaire that says I'm going to be supporting pro-Second Amendment candidates. Oh, but. There's always that but, right, Mike?
Yeah, right.
And, you can take the politics out of running a school board and really just focus specifically on what's in the best interest of the kids. And if you look at three things, in my opinion, and this is how I, whether I vote on something, yes or no, and if I do it this way, I'm going to be right. One, is it legal? All right, that has to be the first litmus test. Two, is it good for kids? Three, is it good for the staff? If you can hit all three of those boxes, why would you not vote for whatever is in front of you? Now, if you can't hit all three, now you got to make some more evaluations. But, the Johnny-come-latelys of the quote-unquote parents' rights movement, the Second Amendment movement, whatever you want to call it, these folks, nice you're here now, but, at the same point in time, please let the people that know what they're doing continue doing what they're doing. I'm not just talking about myself. There's plenty of other races that you and I can probably have a dozen examples of. But in my race, that is certainly going on. And, I've taken 9 months, going back to November, tracking all these lawsuits because they're lawsuits. One's federal, two are state, and things change. So,
well, the people listening to this show want to know how they can help the Miller of the Miller case get reelected, and I'll tell you, it's an important statement. If he stuck his neck out to be the named plaintiff on the lawsuit, and if he doesn't win reelection, I think that sends a terrible message. And I think that what's really important is that we get Jim reelected. He's done such a good job. So the folks listening to this want to know, what can they do? Where do they go to donate their time? Where do they go to donate their dime in order to help Jim Miller get reelected?
All right, friends, here's where we're at. So a couple of different things. One, Miller for School Board's the website, right? Miller for School Board, you can donate there. Two, ask for a sign, ask for a bumper sticker. I got plenty of those. We'll get them out to you. Three, San Diego Young Republicans, who have endorsed me along with the gun owners, they're going to do a walk for me on October 5th. Come out on a Saturday, give me 2 hours. I'll buy everybody a donut or so. And let's walk some precincts and knock on some households and let people know what we're all about.
Hey, if you're a business owner and feel like you're wasting money on your marketing, it's probably because you are not talking to your customers in a way that they understand. So a lot of companies waste money on marketing because they just don't have the words to make customers want to buy. That's why you should get Sage Tree a call. They are San Diego certified Story brand guide. Story is the oldest form of communication, and Sage Tree can help you use it to grow your business. Getting started is real easy. Go to sagetree.com, click on the schedule an appointment button right now.
So, a few years ago when San Diego County gun owners got the sheriff to start issuing CCWs, I was inundated with all kinds of different folks from different industries who wanted to capitalize on the CCW, the fact that they were issuing, which is great. But I'll tell you, one company that really rose to the top in a bunch of different ways and has stayed active and supportive in very real ways is USCCA. They've done an amazing job, and a huge part of that is our guest and my buddy, Adam Bendas.
What's going on?
Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, good to be back.
Really, truly, appreciate everything you do, man.
No, thank you. Appreciate that.
USCCA has done a great job of being very supportive in a bunch of different ways, but the reality is that's you. That's you making sure that they're doing everything they can to support the cause, really, but, the cause via San Diego County Gun Owners, via Gun Owners Radio, and it's helped so much, really. I mean, your competitors, you've had competitors who have come and gone, made a bunch of promises, and then I never hear from them again.
Shocking.
And you have been a stalwart ally the entire time. Is that the right word, Dave? Stalwart?
Hey, don't use my name.
Yes,
today.
Dave
Well,
Stalwart.
I would think that your job is extremely rewarding.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people don't look at that from a job point of view, because you
Sure.
really want to have a job that you're helping people.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing, the worst case scenario is when you find out somebody doesn't have your services, and then they come to you.
Sure.
It's like,
Which
geez,
you've had
dude.
people like that on the show.
How many times have people, gotten in trouble and then you heard about it and they weren't members? You know what I mean? They've come to you and they weren't members.
Way more than I comfortable with. That's what's kind of frustrating too.
Ran out of fingers and toes.
Mine
crazy.
is way more minimal than yours.
Right.
Somebody will come to me and say, well, my tranny just went out. I said, well, do you have a service contract?
Right.
Well, no, I don't. Well, why didn't you buy it? Well, it was $1,000.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? The tranny's going to cost you $4.
Yeah, no one's a felon.
Yeah, but
for-
in his
you know what I mean?
situation,
yeah.
you're going to go to jail.
Well, what's cool though too, but not to get like off the topic, but talking about like rewarding stuff. Because I'll give them a shout out because I just came from there literally right now. From if you guys, they're a supporter of you guys, Ramona Shootist Emporium.
Yeah.
Little store out in Ramona. So this
Great
is one a super rewarding thing that we do. That's really cool. Like so they have a staff of like 5 people, including the owner. We were able to, with our training manager Dave, who's here in town now as well. He's a training manager for USCCA for the West Coast. So what we did, because they were kind of wanting to offer classes. They get a lot of people come through the store buying stuff and all that, and people want to get classes and educated, and nothing really exists like that in Ramona. So what we were able to do was get them all certified as USCCA instructors. Which one cool thing about that is all the access to USCCA's curriculum and things like that. But when you actually go through the class, for example, there's a lot of also teaching how to be an instructor and do all that kind of stuff, which takes time and development and all that. But to get to this point today, they had their first class. I mean, only a couple people, but it's just a couple people that are wanting to get into learning how to protect themselves and things like that. And so now they're like full on hitting the ground, getting classes going for people out there.
Congratulations to
So something like that
Ramona.
is super cool.
You guys are awesome.
And you're giving back because it makes you, because the more people that will train and help people,
Yep.
your goal one day is never have to do this again. Go fishing.
Well, so there's the product, the actual product,
Yeah.
but above and beyond that, USCCA is involved politically. You guys are involved educationally.
They were actually at the RNC, as a matter of fact, as like the
really?
as the Second Amendment advocates.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, they got a big national pack,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
That they set up,
Yep.
which is awesome.
Are you at the DNC Monday?
I kind of doubt that.
So
Mike's going to be there.
So you guys are you've been sponsors at Gun Prom. You're going to be sponsors at Gun Prom again this year, which thank you so much. But you guys have been really, really super helpful. That we lost the gun show at Del Mar, and then some folks from Arizona came in and said, "Hey, we want to try to rebuild this in a different venue." And Rich has bent over backwards to make this thing happen through Gun Owners Radio, which is awesome. And you guys have been super supportive the whole time.
No, I think because I think what I've talked to Rich plenty about this. The adding the layer of having classes and the symposiums and stuff like that. That is really cool.
Yeah.
To have that at the gun show. I mean, looking at the list, it's funny too. They're pretty much everybody is partnered with USCCA in one way or another. So that adds another layer to of our partnerships literally across the country. Walk the Talk, for example, they're going to be at the gun show. That's actually a national level partnership with USCCA doing the mental health stuff between USCCA, for example, and Walk the Talk and people, psychologists actually that USCCA or Delta Defense actually employs. For instance, SB2. When that went in, that whole thing, when they changed the curriculum, they added in CCW classes, you have to have a mental health thing. Well, USCCA was able to come up with a curriculum kind of working with Walk the Talk and the psychologist that Delta Defense employs to give instructors, because they're all like, we don't know. What do you mean? What do you want us to talk about with mental health?
Yeah.
And of course, the government's like, well, we don't know. Just do it.
Yeah.
Like it always is. But that's another example of cool partnerships like that to giving more benefit to people, like you guys are saying.
That's awesome. So you get both mental health in these CCW classes where they teach you how to, the different gun laws and how to use your gun and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You get both mental health and mental health, right?
Exactly.
I've been waiting to say that. Okay, so let's talk about.
Should we laugh? It'll
No,
make you feel
no.
better.
want-
You guys want to use sound bites like
if
the
you want
drum?
to. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
But,
he wants the drums.
So some of the class. Let's talk about some of the classes. These are actually the symposium speakers, which means if you buy a ticket to the gun show, you get to see these speakers for free. There's no additional cost. There are lectures that are just for you for showing up. First one up is Gary Gibson. There's no better guy on this planet than Gary Gibson.
Love Gary.
Those are some of the even the seminars that we do on our own with partners. The legal seminars, always some of the best events that we put on.
Gary Gibson is an attorney. He is an absolute pit bull and a scholar. And the title of his talk is Lessons Learned from San Diego CCW Cases. And man, does he have some good lessons.
Absolutely.
And he's got some great victories. He's such a great guy. The other one is Intersection of Guns and Mental Health. We just talked about that. That's with Walk the Talk America. I guess they're sending a couple of folks to come out and talk about that. The intersection of guns and mental health. Great subject. Tricky subject. And I don't think we all have that completely figured out yet. You know what I mean? And it's something that the fact that we're working on it more and more, I think is really, really important. And you said you're partners with them on a national level? Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah, even for instance, the USCCA membership, I've talked about that plenty, how you get a lot of training and everything. There's actually an entire training section on mental health. You can log in and access actually with any level of membership and look at that kind of thing, if that's something you're needing or interested in.
Nice. How to get your CCW in 2024. That's our buddy Bill Deasy, who is from CCW USA. Things have gotten, they're different, but most of the changes are better, and they're continuing to get better. Mm-hmm. I think 2025 is going to be the best year yet when it comes to CCWs.
Yep.
Yeah, I think also that's a good one even too, because I still see it quite a bit talking to people. I think a lot of people, even with Bruin and everything too, a lot of people think they can't get a CCW. And I'm like, no, go apply, get one.
Mm-hmm. That was I got to say, so we got the policy changed before Bruin. We got the policy changed in the summer of 2017, and well into 2019. We were struggling just to get people to apply. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't even apply, and then boom, it took off, and that was that. I mean, I get it. In 2017, 2018. People were getting their CCWs in less than a month.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Because there was no wait time.
People still. I mean, still it's to this day, which is crazy. People still think like they can't get one,
right.
So then they don't try or don't even apply.
Yeah, which is we're at about. We just went over the 20,000 CCW mark, which is before the change. It was at about 1,100. So we're up to 20,000, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. And but I used to say this in the classes all the time. If we had the same percentage of CCWs issued as is average across the country, we should be at about 150,000. And we're at 20,000. 20,000 is a reason to celebrate. And Yahoo, let's get after it. But man, we got to get to 150,000 just to be average. Mm-hmm. So. Okay, so that's Bill Deasy. He's going to teach. Wow, this is a big title. Confronting the Darkness, and that's Raul Mendez. That's his story of stopping a mass shooter in Arizona. You remember that dude?
I do. I met him briefly at Gun Prom. Actually, didn't get a chance to talk to him too much, but yeah, no, really cool guy.
What do you think of his story?
It's amazing. It's nuts. It's crazy.
What do you think, Alicia?
I like his new eye.
What's his new eye?
Oh, he has you've not seen it?
No.
He had a casing, and like some type of resin.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Like a 9mm casing.
Yeah,
or
instead
something?
of it hit the pupils like the primer. It's pretty awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
He's so great. He's such a great story.
Yeah.
And Adam, I was saying a couple of weeks ago, we brought up Raul. The thing I like most about his story, obviously it's tragic, and I'm sorry he had to go through it. But
Right.
the thing I like most is he did what he needed to do, and he isn't like a SWAT team guy or a former Ranger or SEAL. He's just a normal guy who was at a house party, with his family and friends. He was just a normal guy who had bought a gun and was kind of into it, and he was still able, get training, and he believes that, and is now a trainer, an instructor. But it really is proof positive that firearms, it's the ultimate,
Tool.
Yeah, it's the ultimate tool. It levels the playing field.
Equalizer.
Great equalizer. So Raul's coming out just to do our symposium, and I can't thank him enough.
I think that's a good example too. I mean, to tie it back to, like, say, Gary, for example, because Gary can talk about his perspective as an attorney handling cases too. But it's also people relate and listen more to, like, real stories, and especially when they're just an everyday person that went through this, and now let's learn from that.
Wow. Yeah. This is interesting. I like this. History of black gun ownership and the new faces of the industry. And that's a lecture from Brandy up in Riverside. What's her
From
what is it? Beretta Brandy, that right?
So Fortune Firearms, I believe, is her company.
Up in Riverside, right?
Brandy.
Is it Riverside or
yeah,
San Bernardino?
she's Riverside. I think like outside Hemet area.
Okay.
I believe.
That'll be super interesting. She's a very interesting lady, and that's a fascinating topic. And you and I, Adam, have seen the interest in especially the San Diego black community when it comes to firearms ownership. So listening to Brandy.
Brandy's a great one to listen to.
Yeah.
Hey, Seal One gets compared to Frog Lube a lot. I don't know why, but they do. Well, they are a little different. In fact, they're very different. With Frog Lube, you need to degrease your solvent, lubricate, and protect. How many different types of Frog Lube do you need? It's just too much and way more work than it needs to be. With Seal One, it's a one and done. Wipe it on, wipe it off, and you're done. Buy some right now. That's seal1.com, and we really want to thank them for sponsoring Stump My Nephew.
That's interesting. So I didn't know that. So Frog Lube, you also need a degreaser, a lubricant, and a protectant, where in Seal One you get it all in one.
Yeah, I know. And it's really hard to catch a frog and then get the lubricant out of them.
It truly is.
It is.
Okay, so we're talking with Adam. We were going down the list. We were talking about some of these symposium guests, which is really interesting. We were just talking about Brandy Joseph, Beretta Brandy. She's coming down to talk about the history of black gun ownership and the new faces of the industry. I'm totally going to catch that. What day and time is that one? Do you have that one listed?
That one is, it's all up on the...
It's all up on the... So you go to gunownersradio.com/gun-show. So gunownersradio.com/gun-show.
2 on Saturday.
2 o'clock on Saturday. I'm totally going to catch that one. Okay. And then the teaching the next generation to defend the 2A, Second Amendment. I had somebody ask me, Adam, they were like, what does 2A mean? I'm like, really? Like, really?
Somebody guessing outside the industry.
No, they weren't in the industry. It was somebody. It was a gun owner though. They'd been a gun owner for like 10 years.
Interesting.
They went to public school, Mike. It's all right.
I mean, I get. So we have our 10 ring membership, and no one knows what 10 ring. No one. Everybody's like, what is 10 ring? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, there was just a story that kids in like high school can't tell analog clocks anymore either. So
Well,
who knows?
Now
Trust
to be
me, they can't even dial a phone.
Can't drive a
that
stick
has
shift
dial.
either. Oh, that's true.
Right.
It's true, Dave.
Now, to be
You're right.
fair, when my first time ever on the air, it was around when Trump was going to go visit Kim Jong over in in North Korea, and everyone kept in the promos of the radio. They said he's going to meet Little Kim, and I was thinking, oh, the rapper Little Kim. Why is he? So I felt like a fool then.
Well, I can forgive the 10 ring. That might be a little obscure, but come on, you got to know what 2A is. Okay, so on the symposium, Adam from USCCA, big part of sponsoring the symposium. Thank you so much. But the next one we're talking about is teaching the next generation to defend the 2A. That's Derek LeBlanc, and he's from Kids Safe Foundation. They're actually going to be there with BB guns to teach your kids, which is very cool. Teach all the 4 rules, proper handling of guns, and they're using a BB gun, and they have the little like a blow up, like a bouncy house, but it's a gun range. Yeah, for kids.
Adults allowed
It's for
to
kids. It's a bouncy house, but it's for kids. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, when's the last time you shot a BB gun, right?
It's been a while. I was thinking bouncy house sounds like fun though.
Yeah, I know. I wonder if we could talk them into like, hey man, after you're done, can we go bouncy
when,
house
like when the
around?
party's over, isn't that what they do? You take your shoes off and you go in the bouncy house.
Do a little bouncy house.
That's it.
She can break dance.
And they're doing that all week. They're doing that all weekend. So bring your kids. If you have, I'll tell you, if you're listening to this, you're probably already a gun person. So you already taught your kids. You've already taught your grandkids. I know you have a coworker or a neighbor or your buddy's kids, you know what I mean? And they haven't taught their kids and they don't really know what to do. This is the perfect opportunity for you to say, hey, you know what? They got this Kids Safe Foundation coming to the gun show. It's in Escondido. So, hey, neighbor, coworker, friend, whatever.
The cost of a ticket.
Cost of a ticket. They're going to teach your kids, give them a nice, quick foundation. You know, hey, here's what it's all about.
Right.
And then we have Gary Gibson again. Boy, that guy's busy. And he's teaching the law of self-defense in California, which is...
How appropriate.
That's really appropriate. And then what's cool, though, too, is I imagine he'll probably talk about it. He can actually talk about where he's applied this in real life, in real cases, which is awesome.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it's tricky. What people don't really realize is California actually has... When it comes to self-defense laws with firearms, California is actually very good.
I learned a lot of that from Gary, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
About that kind of stuff.
But their district attorneys and their judges, not so good.
Right.
So they can actually take a bad situation or a good situation and make it bad. Not our DA. Our DA has been wonderful, Summer Stephan. We're very proud of the things that she's done, the partnership, or it's not a partnership, the feedback that she's taken and the changes that she's made and how she's adjusted to, going from 1,100 CCWs to over 20,000,
Well, one of those also was shout out to Gary again for mopping the floor with one of her deputy DAs in court.
Yeah.
I always like to throw that one out there.
So good. That's fantastic. That's wonderful.
Awesome.
But like sometimes they're tied by bad law. Even if there is good law, they can turn good law into a bad situation. There are people that are just frankly predatory when it comes to gun owners. I mean, I've long called the entire ATF from sea to shining sea is a predatory agency. They're not your friend. They're in no way supportive of the Second Amendment.
And that knowledge of what that side can do and tear you up is so critically important as to why you need a quality self-defense attorney.
Right. The other thing is,
you need someone to protect you.
I get so many questions like, "Hey, in this situation, they give me some vague situation like, can I defend myself?"
Every day.
Yeah, right. Can I defend myself? If somebody does this, can I shoot them? And I'm like,
That's why we always actually, it's another thing I picked up from Gary. The lawyer response is, well, it depends.
yeah,
Right.
always.
It depends.
You want to tell your story about being in Vegas?
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, of course I do.
And then I want to talk to our last speaker, but tell your story real quick.
You're talking about in the parking lot and all that?
Yeah, you were there for a class and
so it was actually when I first actually was getting started with Delta and USCCA. I rode out there to kind of shadow my buddy out there who does what I do out in Vegas. We went to a place called Range 702, still out there, a nice indoor range out there in Vegas, and we had basically a guy that was trying to acquire a gun. The class went on a break. He walked in during the break and sat down at a student's desk who was like getting some water.
Now, was he a student of this class or any affiliation at all?
Negative, not at all. So I tell this story at Discount Gun Mart, for example. So like 702 range, the way it was set up, I can picture it. It's still, it's like the end of the counter towards the range, and there's a door that goes into the classroom. So like anybody can kind of walk in and out. And so the class went on break. We're all kind of distracted. This dude he literally just went down pretty damn bold and sat down at a student's desk who was on break and started rifling through the guy's range bag.
wow.
While we're in the class. And it's my first time there. I wasn't really paying that close attention. I was just talking to an instructor and things like that. And the guy comes back and sees this random guy digging through his bag, and he confronts him. This turns into an altercation where we all kind of are stepping in the classroom like, what are you doing? And so some of the range staff kind of all gathered him, if you will, and called 911, who took, I remember, over an hour to get there.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it was great response time for a guy trying to steal a gun.
To a gun shop. Yeah. Great.
But and so this is online too. You can watch this whole video. So I tell people it's a very, very entertaining video in the second part, because then they go out. So we resumed class. So I was not out in the parking lot for this part, but we obviously heard and everything after. Well, so what happened was when the police finally showed up to deal with that guy who was trying to take the gun, he turned into a physical fight. He pulled a screwdriver out of his pants. He started stabbing the police officer, hit her multiple times in the face, even like in the temple. And so they're fighting and everything, and her partner draws his gun, and there's 3 range staff, including an instructor, plus another random guy in the parking lot who also all drew their guns, and they all shot this dude in the parking lot.
He's no longer waterproof.
Yeah, I think we heard like 14 times is what he got shot. I don't know how accurate, but it's hard to tell.
I mean, he had to have been. You got to wonder, like he had to have been crazy.
Probably on drugs.
But
Something off. I remember. I remember literally standing face to face with him in the classroom. There was obviously not all there. Something was a little off, and he also had something else. You get into politics. He had a long record of violent crime, and he's out there still doing his thing. Not anymore, but at the time.
That's crazy. What's that like, though? What was it like being there witnessing that?
It's kind of so.
That'd be surreal. First,
but you weren't outside with the group.
No, but what the funny thing about that though, we resumed the class, and my buddy was kind of doing a portion of it, and then the class then led into the lunch break. And that's when we find out, because one of our guys, I can't say exactly what he said because we're on the radio, but he comes back and tells, he goes, "Oh my, come out of here!"
Couldn't
my
you hear
God.
the 14 rounds? Or?
No, because we're next to the range, so you're hearing the normal range noise anyway.
So you just figured.
So he comes out and he's like, "Come here!" Oh my God! And we walk out, and 702. I remember too. It's also the front of it's glass windows, all that. You look out, and we walk out there, and we see the guy's body laying there in the parking lot, and more cops and everything like that. We're like, "What in the world happened?" And we actually had to stay there too. We were stuck there for hours. We all had to give statements and testimony and all this kind of stuff.
Hey, let me guess.
What? Guess what?
Sam the gunman's not calling in tonight.
Yeah. Yes. Correct.
Thanks for telling me.
We talked about it about an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, we did.
That's okay. That's all right.
I was about ready to break in.
No, I should have clarified. My apologies. Sam's not calling in today, so we're going to continue on talking to Adam about all the interesting.
Well, then let's
things
ask him the question.
No. We want to save the question for next week. But what I do want to do is talk about our last, save the best for last speaker for the symposium. Somebody is going to talk about concealed carry lifestyle for women, and that is our very own Alicia Curtin.
Yeah,
is that a curtain call?
We might have a little bit of fun in there.
You really need the drum sound.
I know.
Put it on your watch.
Are you going to break dance?
We'll see. I got to do some warm up. Got to practice. Yeah, we're talking about everything for the concealed carry lifestyle choices for women. Equipment's going to be different. Carry options are going to be different. Mindset.
So you're bringing a lot of gear.
A little bit of everything. Yeah, a little bit of mindset, a little bit of gear. All the things rolled into one for that 1 hour. 50-minute talk.
Well, everybody's got it. Only how much?
Well, it's a 50-minute talk.
Free
with your cost of the
15,
ticket.
There's no way you can do that.
No.
Got to be at least 50.
Talk really fast.
Thanks for watching this episode from Gun Owners Radio. If you're watching mainstream media, you're not getting the truth about guns and the Second Amendment. Gun Owners Radio is the easiest way to stay on top of the Second Amendment fight, the fight for your self-defense rights. You can watch our live stream on YouTube every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, or if you're in San Diego, AM 1170, FM 96.1, The Answer. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform. Just do a search for Gun Owners Radio and you'll find our show. Don't forget to support our sponsors. Click on the links in the show notes and support the businesses that support your Second Amendment rights. Like and subscribe to help defend and restore the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.